If we think we made a mistake with something in the past, maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was a stepping stone that allowed us to evolve.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Regina Huber. Previously, episode 522 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 10 months, 9 days, 17 hours, and 45 minutes since we last had our conversation.
I think that's what the world needs right now, to have a balance of the yin and yang, feminine, masculine. It's always necessary to strive towards that balance. And that's why I decided to go into transformational leadership coaching for women.
That was then. This is now. Regina, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing excellent. Thank you so much, Angela. It's so wonderful to be connected again. And I am here in Johannesburg today. So, we are connecting across continents.
Exactly. The first time we spoke, you were in New York, right?
Yes.
Today you're in Johannesburg, which gives you the benefit of time, right? You're in my future now. Before you were in my past, probably by 1 hour. But now you're a couple hours ahead of me, aren't you?
I am. It's now 11:33 magic time.
Wow. We're looking at 6 hours ahead of me. So how is my future looking?
It's very bright and sunny.
I love that. Now, when we spoke, there was a ton of things that was going on with you. And I think the word that really came out to me in our conversation is two things: the conversational dance and energy. Let's start from the mental aspects as to how all that you're doing affects you mentally.
Okay, so of course everything is connected. Our mental capacity or activity is not disconnected from our physical or our energetic activity and capacity. So it's all connected. That's why we need to really think holistically about these things. So we are is energy, but we like to think of energy as something separate from our body, which is not really true, right? It's all together. So yes, everything is affected, mutually affected. And I've learned a lot about this because I have studied a lot of holistic healing on the side, a lot of neuroscience, and of course also through this energy and also through my passion for dance, which also implies, of course, energy. It implies presence. It implies the body and everything else, right? Really any activity, but I think dance has taught me a lot about all of this.
Yeah, we're living in a world where mental challenges are occurring because there's a ton of things going on. Mm-hmm. And I think specifically the workload that can occur. And without having an avenue to vent, an avenue to release, I think we can see the strains. And of course, we're seeing it in our society. Now, that energy aspect as well, tied with the spiritual concept of what you're doing, is huge, right? The things that you do, Regina, and the impact that you're having in the world, the spiritual you must contribute to that as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. Of course, we are all connected through spirit and through energy. There's no doubt around that. The energy part is scientifically proven nowadays, and the spiritual part, when there's something that we feel. So it's definitely playing into the work, who we are, because we are spirit. We are not just human. The humanness is a part of that. So that's why also, you mentioned stress and all of that. So we really need to find that inner being again and to reconnect with ourselves and also really step into our brilliance. Last time we also talked about which of my talents is responsible for us meeting, I think, to remember. So what I shared then might be a little bit different to what I share now, but it's all, again, connected. And nowadays I would say, well, I inspire people to step into their brilliance, and I help them allow themselves, I should say, to access their inner power and their purpose, and specifically also women and young people. So that's also something that then actually diminishes stress. Once you do that and don't do work that you don't like, stress is also automatically diminished, right?
Yeah, it speaks to the career block where what you choose as your career when connected to who you are and your uniqueness, your distinctive uniqueness, as you speak about, is so important, isn't it?
It is. So, yes. So that's exactly what I mean with authentic brilliance. I call it in my work distinctive uniqueness. It's a phrase that I've coined because it really expresses that we're not just unique, but we must distinguish ourselves through our uniqueness. So there's a place for us in this world. There's, of course, a reason behind this being different. It's not an accident. We're all different for a reason. And this then also plays into my diversity work and my big passion for diverse leadership, for inclusive diversity that I've always had. I just didn't always know that, but I'm now working very intensely in this area. In the past, when I was a little girl, it was just maybe curiosity, and later it became an adventurous spirit. And so I ventured out into the world to uncover and discover how other people think, live, eat, and dance, right? And that then translated together with all my other acquired and natural skills and talents, together with all of that, then translated into the work I do now.
Which is beautiful because there's a major component in that where you were listening. You could have experienced things of the world and not listen. It could have been something that only you heard or you saw. Probably better said, that you saw and didn't hear or didn't listen to. And now that you've listened and experienced, it seems as though you have a ton to share. Now, let's break open the 4 elements, please.
So the 4 elements of my powerful leadership transformation process are a self-empowering mindset, distinctive uniqueness, a body and energy conscious presence. And then the 4th is more like a consequence of the 3 first, which is effective action. Because we all take action usually, but is it effective, right? So when you do the first 3 and combine it with your specific skills and talents, that's what translates into effective action and therefore success.
It feels as though you discovered these things on the dance floor. It's like...
Certainly, in part, for sure.
Which really speaks about who you are. Now, one of the things that I ran up on, like when I was adding you on Skype, is your part of your Skype handle. And how do you pronounce it? Is it Palermo or Palermo?
Palermo. That's because I used to own a bed and breakfast at the time when I signed up for Skype for the first time in Palermo, Hollywood in Buenos Aires.
Oh.
And so that's how that came about. And the number behind that was the number of the house.
Oh. Well, I was fascinated by the name because it means fit for landing in. And I found from the physical side of an individual, it's one thing to experience the world. It's one thing to be an active listener. But being someone that is fit is a major part of how you show up as well. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really important. And movement is also a really important part of my daily life in the form of dance. I certainly also have to find those quiet moments when I really look into myself and meditate, for example. But I'm an action person. I love to walk a lot, to dance. There's a lot of movement in my life, and that also means change to me. I actually love change, and I've always loved it. I think I get easily bored. So I really need to have change in my life. And there are people who dread change, but I really love it.
The author of Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. Speak powerfully in any situation. Oh, how you have evolved. When you do look back, Regina, at the last couple of years, all that you've done, the changes you've made, do you have any regrets?
I don't, because I have learned to accept my so-called mistakes as my lessons and therefore have learned to grow from them. I certainly had a lot of regrets in the past, but one of the strongest and most painful experiences in my life taught me so much that I now, when I look back, I have to be extremely grateful for it. It opened up my mind. It brought me to growth that I wouldn't have otherwise experienced. And it also is the reason why I now can do the work that I do. And I think that's really, really substantial. If we think we made a mistake with something in the past, maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was a stepping stone that allowed us to evolve.
I love that. On the note of evolving, I am so proud. It gives me inspiration and motivational energy when I have the opportunity to call in and ask, Regina, are you doing what you said you were doing? And to hear that you have continued on your path and it has evolved tremendously. but the impact that you're making for women in diversity, it is absolutely worth being congratulated for. So well done, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
One thing that has changed so much for me since we spoke last, I don't know how many hours and seconds you said again, that was very interesting. I have to listen to that again. But what I've really done over these 2 years is I've built my network both locally and internationally. I never will stop doing that because it's tremendously enriching. And I learn just as much from teaching, for example, sessions like just recently in Sweden to a group of Nigerian women. I learned just as much from them as they learn from me. So there's this constant exchange with people I meet from different cultures, tremendously enriching. And then, of course, as you mentioned before, I've worked on my content. I've expanded it. I do a lot of inclusive leadership teaching now as well. And it's just become so much more powerful and so much more authentically mine. And there will be more every single year. I just know that. So I also feel like I've really truly grown into a citizen of this planet now. So I, as you know, lived on several different continents and worked on several different continents when we spoke the last time around. But now, spent more time on the African continent, actually 5 months of the last 2 years to be concrete. So that's been wonderfully enriching, and it's just constantly evolving, as you said. That's what really keeps me going, that impulse and that inspiration that comes from all these different relationships, right? And all these different experiences. So I can only just recommend whoever hasn't traveled much to really take some time to travel and open your minds. Maybe just learn a language, even that also opens our minds, and it's just really enriching.
The power of a conversation. Regina Huber, again, a great pleasure, a pleasure I treasure. Thank you, my friend, for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.